Hi guys, I'm back with chapter 2 of our A to Z Mysteries, The Absent Author by Ron Roy. Let's do a quick review before we get started with chapter 2. We met our main characters in chapter 1. Here they are here. So we have Dink, who is the boy with the blonde hair. We have Josh, who has the green shirt. And Ruth Rose, the girl in the red at the end. These are our three main characters, and when we meet them, they are headed to the Book Nook. That is our setting right now. It is a bookstore, and they're going to meet an author. An author is somebody who writes books, and his name is Wallis Wallace. Now, the last thing we read is that when they got to the Book Nook, the chair that Wallis Wallace, the author, should have been sitting in was empty. And that is where we're going to start off for chapter 2. Here we go. Dink raced into the Book Nook. Josh and Ruth Rose were right behind him. They found 3 seats behind Tommy, Tomko, and Eddie Carini. Dink plopped his pack on the floor. The clock over the cash register said 3 minutes after 11. "Where is he?" Dink whispered to Tommy Tomko. Tommy turned around. "Beats me. He's not here yet, and Mr. Paskey looks worried." "What's going on?" Ruth Rose said. Dink told her and Josh what Tommy had said. "Paskey does look a bit nervous," Josh whispered. "Mr. Paskey always looks nervous," Dink whispered back, looking around the room. He saw about 30 kids he knew. Mrs. Davids, Dink's neighbor, was looking at gardening books. Dink checked out the other grown-ups in the store. None of them looked like a famous mystery writer. Mr. Paskey stood up. "Boys and girls, welcome to the Book Nook. Wallis Wallace should be here any second. How many of you have books to be autographed?" Everyone waved their book in the air. "Wonderful! I'm sure Wallis Wallace will be happy to know that Green Lawn is a reading town." The kids clapped and cheered. Dink glanced at the clock. 11:05. He swallowed, trying to stay calm. Wallis Wallace was late. But it was only about 5 minutes. Slowly, 5 more minutes passed. Dink felt his palms getting damp. "Where is Wallis Wallace?" he wondered. Some of the kids started getting restless. Dink heard one kid say, "Whenever I'm late, I'm grounded." "So where is he?" Josh asked. Ruth Rose looked at her watch. "It's only 10 after, she said. "Famous people are always late." Now Dink stared at the clock. The big hand jerked forward, paused, then wobbled forward again. At 11:15, Mr. Paskey stood up again. "I don't understand why Wallis Wallace is late," he said. Dink noticed that his head was shiny with sweat. His bow tie was getting a workout. Mr. Paskey smiled bravely, but his eyes were blinking like crazy through his thick glasses. "Shall we give him a few more minutes?" The crowd grumbled. Ugh! But nobody wanted to go anywhere. Ruth Rose started to read her book. Josh opened his sketch pad and began drawing Mr. Paskey. Dink turned and stared at the door. He mentally ordered Wallis Wallace to walk through. "You have to come," Dink thought. Here's our picture. So this is the Book Nook, the bookstore. You can see the kids over here. They're sitting waiting for Wallis Wallace. This guy in the middle, I don't know if you can see him, is Mr. Paskey. And then we have the neighbor. She's looking at some books over there. If you look close at the kids' faces, how do you think these kids are feeling? Yeah, they look pretty annoyed. They're not a fan that they're having to wait for Wallis Wallace. I'm not really sure where he is. Ever since he had received Wallis Wallace's letter, he thought about one thing: meeting him today. Suddenly, Dink felt his heart skip a beat. The letter! Short of being kidnapped, the letter said, nothing will stop him from coming. Kidnapped? Dink shook himself. Of course! Wallis Wallace had been kidnapped. Mr. Paskey stood up again, but this time he wasn't smiling. I'm sorry, kids, he said, but Wallis Wallace does not seem to be coming after all. The kids groaned. Ugh! They got up, scraping chairs and bumping knees. Mr. Paskey apologized to them as they crowded past, heading for the door. I've read every single one of his books, Dink heard Amy Flower tell another girl. Now I'll probably never meet anyone famous. I can't believe we gave up a soccer game for this, Tommy Toncope muttered to Eddie Carini on their way out. Ruth Rose and Josh went next, but Dink remained in his seat. He was too stunned to move. He felt the letter through his jeans. Short of being kidnapped. Finally, Dink got up and walked out. Josh and Ruth Rose were waiting for him. What's the matter? Ruth Rose said. You look sick. I am sick, Dink mumbled. I invited him here. It's all my fault. What's all your fault? Josh asked. This, he said, thrusting the letter into Josh's hands. Wallis Wallace has been kidnapped. That is the end of chapter 2. So, at the end of our chapter, we have Wallis Wallace, who is still a mystery. We don't have much information about the author Wallis Wallace. Do you have a prediction? Why don't you think Wallis Wallace showed up at the book reading? Do you agree with Dink? Do you think he was kidnapped? Let me know.